First thing we'll have is the pledge to the flag by
This
Mr.
one right
Philip
there.
Lewis.
Next to the percentage.
Yeah, right next to the percentage.
That's what it looked like when you first pulled it up.
All right.
Guys?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You get this one, right?
Pat, you want to do the roll call?
Here. Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Molina. Present. Pollock. Joshua.
Here.
Silva. Here. Smith.
Here.
Sarah. Winnicki.
Here.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comments and people who have signed up to speak. I'll remind you, you have 3 minutes. We will allow you a few extra seconds, but then we want to cut you off. Once you're done speaking, sit down and be attentive. The first speaker is Michael Petersdorf. Evidently, he's out in the hallway, so we'll put somebody else in front of him. We'll put Shauna Wyatt in front of Michael Petersdorf.
On the stand. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm Shauna Wyatt. I'm the chairman of the Kane County Historic Preservation Commission. I have been for the 27 years since we have been instituted by the county board. In the past, we've had awesome support from the county board. Historic preservation and the preservation and consideration of unique and important places in the county has always factored into the county plans and the county planning. In the time I've been in the county, almost 30 years, historic preservation has always been a factor in the planning process. And in the past, some of you have had us involved in other things in your district. And in this particular case, our concern is that it seems to be a thinking that one house is the same as another and one owner is the same as another, and this is one house. As the revised plan were to bisect the forest preserve and literally be adjacent to the property, the Muirhead Farm house was landmarked by the county board in 2007. It's received statewide recognition. It's hosted visitors from all over the world, and of course from the United States, when it operated as a B&B. The owners continue to use it for local fundraisers for groups, for tours. They had a tour from Australia recently. This property was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, specifically cited because of the forest, well, the adjacent land, the farm. The family sold the farm in order to protect it. They put restrictions upon themselves through the Kane County Landmark Ordinance, which is fairly restrictive, so that they might preserve the property into the future. Our concern is that it's sort of being treated as, well, it's there, it's going to be moved away, it shouldn't matter. The fact of the matter is the home is extremely significant. It's nationally significant. It's not just a Kane County landmark. And the County Commission, the Preservation Commission, has really strived to get ahead of these places, identify places that matter and that should be taken into additional consideration within the planning process so that we don't end up in a last-minute situation. We were just made aware of this last Monday. I know that the Forest Preserve has been working on this Grand Prairie Gateway project for some time, but it's my understanding that once the route was routed around the Forest Preserve, the family thought that the house had basically, the impact would be not negligible, but certainly considerably reduced. And they weren't aware until they read it in the paper that this line will be literally adjacent to their property. Yes, there's a 15-foot berm where the railroad exists, but these are 160-foot poles. And there's no way this isn't going to be a major obstruction and impediment and negative impact to this property. We would like to see you return to the original route. It does a couple things. It takes the line away from the house. It also keeps it entirely out of a forest preserve. I'm sure if the forest preserve gets bisected, this won't be the last time.
Shauna, your time is up.
Okay, or the last time someone's going to ask to go through the forest preserve. Thanks.
Thank you. Has Michael Petersdorf come back in the room? We'll go to the next person, Elizabeth Safandi.
Hello, I'm Executive Director of Preservation Partners of the Fox Valley, and I'm going to repeat a comment I made at your session last Friday, and that is, in my opinion, and I've been in my job for just under 30 years, the Forest Preserve has done an amazing job of committing to historic preservation. You have had the first historic district in the state of Illinois. There have been many landmarks. I believe there are 47, 48 now, with the addition of the Helmut Jahn Farm. The Muirhead Farmhouse is one of those. It's a very significant building. And I urge you to stick with the Plan A that was approved by the Illinois Commerce Commission. I work in my job in St. Charles. We operate several museums. I try to focus most of my time on the museums, but I will say that in the last week or two, well, actually since a week ago Monday, I have received so many emails I can hardly pay attention to my basic other mission. I have a stack of letters I've received, and they're all very compelling, from Illinois and Chicago organizations, from the Illinois Historic Preservation Agency, from the National Trust for Historic Preservation, from the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy. They're all letters that I think you've received copies of. These organizations don't take things lightly, and they don't spend a lot of time on something that they think is not important or not significant. They really feel that this home, this property, and the adjacent farmland and the site of this property is very significant. If you drive out there and drive up the road that does say private entry, you will be stunned by the beauty of this property. The Forest Preserve made an effort in 2004 to agree with the Muirhead family, and I think we are just so fortunate that agreement was made. Please stick to it. Please don't violate or change those restrictions. Thank you, and my husband will be very glad that it was under 3 minutes.
Thank you. The next speaker would be Michael Petersdorf. Michael, I talked at the begining, everybody gets 3 minutes, and
Correct.
I'll give you a few seconds beyond that. But
Okay.
There's no bonus points for being early, though.
I appreciate that. I have copies of of my statement to hand out. Is that something I can do now? There you go. For those of you that don't know, my name is Mike Petersdorf, and with my wife Sarah, and our 2 sons, I reside in the Muirhead Farmhouse that is in question here. I want to go on record officially as saying that we're opposed to the route that's being considered today. We are in favor of the ICC-approved route that goes south and east around the Forest Preserve property. I think for reasons that have been stated previously, which I'll kind of cover in this as well. Sarah and I, in moving our family out of Minnesota back to Illinois where we grew up, we invested about $750,000 into this property. And that was on the basis that the land was being sold to the Kane County Forest Preserve Commission, and it would be returned back to its original state, prairie, open space, wetland restoration, and other things that were in the works. And it was no secret that my father-in-law made that extremely clear to this commission, that that was his intention, and the family's intention, that the preserve actually be kept as open space and brought back to its original state. We have had visitors during the time that we operated as a bed and breakfast. We had visitors from all over the world. I think in the guest books that we have so far, we've totaled up 7,000 people who have visited this house, either as tourists or as bed and breakfast guests. They included the Netherlands, France, Germany, China, Japan, France, Australia. So Frank Lloyd Wright's appeal is not just limited to Chicago or the U.S. At the last week's committee meeting, you approved the deal with ComEd, and some of the rationale that was used was on the basis that it reflected the number of poles and the fenced-in look that it was going to give to the preserve. And I wanted to kind of bring some attention to that. The numbers that were floated out there, I think, are misleading and extremely inaccurate. 17-to-5 comparison was what was talked about at the executive committee, and that's not even close to being the case. 17 poles would be from the route where it comes into the west along the rail line, completely south and east around the forest preserve, to the other connection on the rail line. That's 17 poles. But that is not all of what is your property. That was compared to 5 poles to go through the property down the rail line. That only goes from point west on the rail line to the eastern portion of your property. So it's an apples to orange comparison. And it's really not fair to consider a vote on this with that being your basis. ComEd basically is going to be satisfied with whatever route is chosen. They really don't care at this point. They want a route, they want it quick, they want it fast, they want to get this project done, and I understand that. But the impact on this house will be devastating if it goes down the rail line. And I don't just say that lightly. Of the landowners that are represented and have I think, spoken before this commission, John Cash included, none of them, or very few of them, actually live in Plato Township. I don't know if you're aware of that or not. 3 of the landowners represented don't even live in the state. Yet you're hearing and considering testimony from people that are absentee landowners. Their interest in this land is basically for resale value to developers. Mine is not. I live here 24/7. I reside in this house with my 2 children. We invested a lot of money in this property, and certainly, you know, seek a symbiotic relationship with the Forest Preserve on that basis. The math that's being used here, I think, is just a little bit fuzzy. And, you know, based on the 600-foot spacing of these poles, you have to look at how many poles are going to be involved accurately.
You've gone your 3 minutes and a little beyond.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
The next speaker is Linda Schramm. Remember, Linda, 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Linda Waterman Schramm. My mother has the family farm on Plato Road, and I would just like to say that about the towers, sure we all know that going the primary route that they have on the map right now is much more towers, it's much more lines, it's much more maintenance, and stating what Mr. Nauman had said, that it would cost approximately $3.1 million more to go the primary route, and it would also have a lot more bad things for the actual neighborhood of Plato Center and the aesthetics. And since the ICC has mandated ComEd to go the shortest, least expensive route and the least amount of impact to the community, I'm sure that the ICC can understand that it's in the best interest to go that least expensive route. And also, this would allow ComEd to use their existing property along the railroad tracks that they already own, be a straighter direct path. And also, I'd like to say that I don't know if you've seen where everything is laid out, but the actual Muirhead home that he was referring to, it's not the lines that they have proposed is on the south side of the railroad tracks, and the Muirhead home is actually on the north side of the railroad tracks. So it is a distance away. It's not like right on the same side of the tracks. And also, the neighborhoods to the north there, they would be looking at a lot more towers to the south and the west, which would be caging in the forest preserve on the primary route. And I'm sure that nobody wants to look at more towers, they want to look at less, which would be going across the entrance of the Muirhead Springs on Rorson Road. This longer route doesn't add to the aesthetics of Plato Center, and we all need to look at the whole picture. Less towers is better. And also consider the Olson Airport on Kendall Road. If the line went the primary route, it doesn't give the pilots enough room for landing excuse me, and taking off of their planes. So we would just advocate the ComEd alternate route and using less towers and less lines. It would be approximately, the ICC approved route would be about 17 towers, which would be 12,600 linear feet. And the ComEd conditional route, excuse me, would be a savings, excuse me, a savings about $3.1 million. So, thank you.
Wow. Very good. Linda's been here before. She practiced this. Jim Fitzgerald?
I have to get this PowerPoint up. Can you help me get the... Get over here. This is a PowerPoint presentation I did about a year ago to the Forest Preserve, outlining what we thought at the time was the issues involved in this. So this is about a year old, so there's some information that might be a little bit outdated, and if you go on the ICC docket and refer to the testimony of various people involved, you can get an updated version of the same thing. So this is kind of this beginning is a summary, the high voltage lines from Byron to Wayne, several miles through Kane County. There are many people along this route whose quality of life, whose property and value will be greatly affected by the location of the power line. All the farmers, landowners, people's concerned share the same point of view of the power lines. They would rather not have them at all. They're an eyesore, and because of the perceived danger, right or wrong, they will have a negative effect on the property values. In many cases, the property owners don't have a 401k. The farmland property value represents their retirement fund. I made some comments here about the legal intervention with the Illinois Commerce Commission and all the hearings and everything that's been going on. I think most people are fully aware of what's going on with the decisions of the ICC and ComEd. Just conked out. Is that go to the next one? It's across. Okay, this goes across. Okay. Okay, I'm focusing on the Plato Township, the Muirhead Forest Preserve area. The original route of ComEd went directly down the CN tracks from when the first public meetings that they had. Then later, the public meetings, they started showing the alternate routes going south and around the bottom edge of the Forest Preserve. From the very beginning, we had the understanding that the property south of the railroad tracks did not have any restrictions stipulated in the land grant funding. I know there's controversy about that, but if you read if you look at the deeds, you can see, if you look at the letters that are dated 2005, the Forest Preserve submitted that the deeds would be reissued. And if you look at the pages dated 2005, you can see that the ICC did sign off on those.
Jim, you're at the end.
Okay.
You can't have Linda's seconds.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The next speaker we have is Diane Kurtz.
Okay. Good morning. Chairman Kenyon, Commissioners, thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the Commission. I am here to strongly object to the proposal for a licensing agreement with Barrington Natural Farms for the use of the Brunner Family Forest Preserves. The Forest Preserve District has been experiencing what is called mission drift, and the proposals before the board today are prime examples of the deals the Forest Preserve District should not be making. Leasing up to 150 acres of Forest Preserve land for up to 25 years for a farming operation, which looks to be a pretty sweet deal for Barrington Natural Farms, is not the mission of the Forest Preserve District, and certainly not what I, as a taxpayer and part owner of the Forest Preserves of Kane County, want to see in this area known as Brunner Family Forest Preserves. This preserve has already lost 10 acres to the Dundee Township Park District, with an additional 34 acres leased to the Dundee Township Park District for 50 years for $1. Add to this the intergovernmental agreement with Kane County for 41.1 acres for right-of-way to allow the construction of the proposed 4-lane highway, the Long Meadow Parkway, to bisect the preserve, and you've managed to really cut up this 741-acre preserve, often referred to as the crown jewel of Kane County. These things are not appropriate for a preserve. The excuse that without the Long Meadow Parkway, this land would be in housing is not valid. The excuse that this land has been in crop is not valid. This is not an issue of whether organic farming, as proposed by Mr. McConville of Barrington Natural Farms, is a good idea or not. This is an issue of what should not be allowed in Kane County Forest Preserves and the very reason for the Forest Preserve District to exist at all. The Forest Preserve District reason for existing is not for farming 20% of the total preserve. It is not for allowing Long Meadow Parkway to bisect 41 acres of the preserve. It is not for allowing the Dundee Township Park District to acquire 10 acres of this land and to lease another 34 acres for Dundee Township Park District use. In addition to what looks to be a very poor licensing agreement with Barrington Natural Farms for too long a term, note the paragraph in the leasing agreement which states use of the barn structure with licensee responsible for the design, construction, maintenance, and cost of all the capital improvements related to the barn, and so on. Fact is, the district has already contracted to pay for repairs to the barn in the amount of $214,501 as of December 2014. Commissioners, take a good look at that map, Exhibit A. I don't think you have that here, though, and compare it to the other maps of Brunner Forest Preserve on the Forest Preserve District website and see what I am seeing. Do not approve this licensing agreement. You can do better to preserve the open spaces of Kane County. Thank you. Under 3 minutes?
Just made it.
Thank you.
Just made it. Well timed at home. That concludes the public comment. We'll move on with the agenda. The next item is approval of the minutes from January 13, 2015. Do we have a motion? We have a motion by Mr. Jarek, second by Mr. Davis. Is there discussion or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The next item we have is the presentation of the bills and approval of the bills. This is a roll call vote. Would somebody like to move that? Mr. Kajarek again? Well, you're right on there today. Mr. Heyman seconds. Is there discussion on the bills? Saying none, ready to vote? All in favor say aye. Oh, no, roll call. I said it before. It's a very short memory. Okay, call the roll.
Allen?
Aye.
Auger?
Yes.
Ferrero? Yes.
Yes.
Ford?
Yes.
Franz?
Yes.
Gillum?
Yes.
Hayman?
Yes.
Oshai?
Yes.
Ismail?
Yes.
Kazar?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Molina, Muhammad?
Yes.
Sheffield?
Yes.
Silva? Yes. Smith?
Yes.
Wonecki?
Yes.
The bills are approved. The next item is the intergovernmental agreement, Forest Reserve R-15022360, resolution authorizing the execution of a use and license agreement with the Barrington Natural Farms for use of the Brunner Farm Forest Reserve. Is there a motion to approve this? The motion by Maggie Auger, seconded by Becky Gillum. Is there discussion? You ready to vote? We have to have a roll call. Roll call? Oh, wait a second.
Mr. President, I'm sorry. I thought there'd be a little bit more discussion. I'm in favor of this. However, I do want to mention that it seemed to be on the fast track. This proposal was given to us in late January and then went to executive committee in early February, and here we are at the full commission. I just don't feel like we had enough discussion time, and I just think it's been on the fast track, and which is, I think, historically not the way we do business.
I understand that, but had you met at the last meeting, you would have
No, I
been there
couldn't
for
be.
45 minutes while we discussed it in depth. Maggie Auger?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is actually in my district, and it is something I support. And I know this has not actually been fast-tracked, but I know it's something the Forest Preserve has been discussing with the farmer for over a year. Actually, Becky and I went to the farm to visit it to see their operations back in August. So we had an opportunity to see how the operations were done. This is a great use of our barn. We've expended monies to fix up the barn, and here is a farmer who's willing to change the land from row farming to organic farming, which will help with the pesticides and herbicides. And I think we have a lease in place. This lease will put a term in place that after 5 years, we have the option, if it's not working out, to get out of it. So I believe it's a good opportunity for the Forest Preserve.
Mr. Smith?
One of the objectors to this issue proposed that it was not in coordination with our mission, citing mission drift. Part of our mission is education. And I really feel as though in today's society, with most of the people living in the city or suburban areas, they're losing touch with agriculture. This is a situation where the kids will be able to go out and actually walk around or get involved in farming operations. So I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Any commissioners, we had a tape of the session. You should go listen to the tape. We had a lot of questions, a lot of back and forth discussion. And Becky?
I just would like to add that I spent a lot of time talking to the people up in my district. I live right by there in West Dundee. The people that I were talking to were very excited about this opportunity. They're looking forward to it. They want to see Bruner active and people participating in the land. And I just want to remind everybody that this is a new process, a new idea for us. I understand that. But I also think that in the contract, as it's written, there are opportunities all along to reevaluate how it's progressing and how it's working and whether or not it's working. And we're going to have lots of opportunities to make changes along the way if we deem them to be needed. We're going to have lots of eyes on this. This is a gentleman who has a proven success in his work, and I think that this is a great opportunity for the Forest Preserve.
Mr. Fraz?
Just a couple of things. There's a lot of forest preserves that have working farms as part of their operations, whether they're historic style or modern day, or in this case, organic. So, we're getting a really neat asset that's going to bring people to the preserve, generate traffic there. And not only is that no cost, no employees, but it's actually going to generate a little revenue. Secondly, several of us, Mr. Lewis in particular, myself, have been advocating for years to preserve the barn there. The board agreed and made a substantial investment in preserving the barn simply as a historic structure. And to now, have this come into place right as we're working on it to actually generate some revenue for that structure is also a benefit. Lastly, there were some comments about the 1,400 animals. I think it's important to point out that 1,300 are chickens. So it's not going to be a gigantic beef ranch. Thank you.
Is there any more? John?
I want to briefly comment on the term mission drift. I think that's code word for I don't want a Long Meadow Parkway Bridge. And so, the facts that are alleged in the statement this morning really aren't consistent with history as it relates to the Bruner acquisition, and I think it's important to set the record straight. When we bought Bruner, we spent years trying to negotiate that deal, and we finally had an opportunity to buy it at a time when we had just passed a referendum, and we chose at that time to make our single largest investment in one land deal, using about 60% of the referendum money for one transaction, which, when you have a board that is spread geographically throughout the county, is a challenge to get support for. But notwithstanding that fact, the people that thought Bruner was needed to be preserved, one of which was me, advocated for it. And when we got down to the dollars and cents that were available, we couldn't afford it without reimbursement from the county for the, if we bought Bruner alone, we didn't have the resources. The way we got over the hump to have the money was the county had for many years had spent millions of dollars prior to our acquisition planning and engineering for the Long Meadow Parkway Bridge. They had an allocation of resources for land acquisition dollars. And as part of that process, they also had to buy some acreage for the Dundee Township Park District. And so it was with those additional funds, coupled with what we had in remaining resources, that we were able to do the deal. Had we not done it and allowed Carpentersville to do what they wanted, we would have had probably 2,000 townhomes on that property. So this deal's a good deal. If we don't do it, we'll farm it for another 5 years anyway. So it's going to be organically farmed. Actually, it's going to be planted with some plant material that will help us in our ultimate goal of restoring the prairie there. So it's a win-win for everyone. And I just want to, when someone comes and mischaracterizes the history, I think it's important for those who know the history to set the record straight. So I appreciate having an opportunity to make those comments.
Thank you very much. Was there another hand over here? Ready to vote? Okay, roll call.
Allen? Aye. Mother?
Yes.
Rivera? Yes. Neville?
Yes.
Ford?
Yes.
Franz?
Yes.
Gillum?
Yes.
Kamen?
Yes.
Holstein?
Yes.
Ismail?
Yes.
Kazarek?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
I'm going to have to abstain on this one.
Martin?
Yes.
Molina? Yes. Conlon?
Yes.
Sheffield?
Yes.
Silva?
I think I share Phil's sentiment, but I'm going to vote yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Konecki?
Yes.
Motion's carried. I'd like to say that our farmer is the man with the red hat in the back room. You can corner him in the hallway and ask him all the questions you want. But I'm not an organic farmer, but I think that it's a good thing, and it'll match with county projects. Young people are going to learn up there. And we'll even learn, believe it or not. Next item is Forest Preserve 15-02-2361, resolution authorizing an option agreement for the grant of right-of-way easement with Commonwealth Edison for the use of land at the Muirhead Springs Forest Preserve. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Lewis. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Ford. Is there discussion? Barbara?
Thank you, President Kenyon. Bear with me here for a second. I wanted to bring up some items. Some of the speakers had touched on those items. Knowing that the Bill Muirhead family live and work on the farm and have invested time and money for restoration, I think is something that we need to consider. Also knowing that the King County Forest Preserve in 2004 approached the Bill Muirhead family for purchase of their land, recognizing the beauty of the Frank Lloyd Wright historic home and farm. Reading the letter from the Chicagoland Northern Fox River Valley, the Muirheads hosted 2 busloads of visitors from the Art Institute in Chicago, architects from Australia, and multiple bus tours from area park districts, along with other tours from people around the world. Our Historic Preservation Chairman, Shauna, has brought up some very good points, bringing the transmission lines and towers immediately adjacent to this landmark would require visitors to drive under them in order to access the property. This is in my district, and I will be opposing the agreement. I do want to say that I'm extremely proud to be a Kane County Forest Preserve representative with 3 historic farms in my district, the Garfield Farm, the Coron Farm, and the Bill Muirhead Farm with the Frank Lloyd Wright home. So I will be voting no today. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak? Mr. Hochheit?
Just a couple brief comments. I want to thank Shauna Wyatt and Liz Safanda, who spoke this morning, just for all the volunteer work they've put in over the years for the Forest Preserve District. We've been strong advocates for open space, tireless hours, usually coming to our meetings to talk about things that are positive. And I think everyone here, if we could have our way, would say we don't want the power line at all. That would be the ideal solution. Unfortunately, we are going to be faced with issues like this, and we have been over the years, and we've dealt with them as best we can. Demands for road infrastructure, utilities. We deal every year. We have another issue to deal with, and I think we've done a pretty good job of balancing what's in the benefits with the burdens here. Unfortunately, if we choose not to act on this, we're going to have power lines that really frame in our Forest Preserve District. And there's good arguments on both sides on this. So I appreciate the property owners that live right there, their concerns. This is one of those issues where no matter how we decide, we're going to it's going to have a negative impact on someone there. So I just wanted to recognize Shauna and Liz for their hard work on behalf of the Forest Preserve District.
Mr. Smith?
What bothers me about this whole issue is the fact that for a year and a half we've been discussing it. And for a year and a half we have had people come in, dozens and dozens of people come to our meetings and tell us how much in favor they were of us going through the Forest Preserve, how it would, if we went through the Forest Preserve, it would have less of an effect on them. The objectors have just come forward recently. I haven't heard that there were any objectors until I received a letter about 3 weeks ago. So based on the fact that there were so many people that came to us previously, I formulated my opinion at that time that it was probably the right thing to do. However, now I'm hearing the other side, and to be honest with you, I'm very torn on it.
Are there any other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lewis first, and then Mr. Sheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the fact that there is a right-of-way with a railroad makes a very strong case to continue that right-of-way for the power line. And I agree with Mr. Hochheit in that if the best case would be no power line, but we have an insatiable demand for power in this country, and so power lines are going to go up. And I think this is, running it down a railroad line is the least impact to all parties concerned. I appreciate it doesn't impact everyone, but I believe it's the least impact, so I'll be voting in favor of this resolution.
Thank you. Mr. Sheffel?
I'd like to advocate that we table this matter for at least 1 month, not at least 1 month, at the most 1 month, maybe even a shorter time period if it's necessary, so that each of us can get out to that property and see what it looks like, the Muirhead farmhouse I'm speaking of. I'm not comfortable that I know where the power poles are going to go in Plan A and then our alternative plan. So we should know probably graphically and visually how many poles are there, where the pole is going to go, how does it impact those farms. I'm not convinced that knowing all that information that I would be against the railroad route, but it seems like we're missing a piece of the puzzle. So I move to table.
He moves to table. Is there a second?
I will second.
That Barbara seconds. There's no discussion. And move to table. You want to do a vote? Roll call vote.
I think there is discussion, Mr.
There's no discussion on motion to table.
Okay.
Can we just clarify what vote is for? So everybody understands?
The motion is to table this. We won't vote on it today. He didn't set a time limit on it. It could be tabled indefinitely. It could be to next month. Next month, we can bring it off the table and start discussing it all over again. Mr. Smith?
This is not discussion, point of information, Mr. Chairman. Are we up against the deadline with the ICC on this?
Yes, Jerry,
Yes,
you
we
want
are.
to discuss that?
So if we table this, we will pass that deadline?
Yes, we will. And we're going to call the roll. If a yes vote means that we do not vote on it today, and in effect that we will go beyond the schedule, and a no vote means we'll vote on it right after this. Mr. Sheffield?
Yeah, point of order. So I didn't hear the discussion about the deadline Mr. Hodges specified.
Do you want to withdraw your motion?
No, I don't.
Why don't we have Jerry explain the schedule?
Yeah, sure. This matter is before the ICC on a rehearing because the approved route did not, the process by which the approved route was approved did not give notice to certain individuals who were impacted by the decision. So the ICC agreed to allow a rehearing and submission of additional testimony by those intervening parties as well as the parties that were already in the case. So they set up a schedule for that to happen. The schedule contemplates various filings and a decision by April. The offer that was made by ComEd provided that for those persons those groups or persons that would agree early, they would pay a slight bonus to those folks for the compensation that they were offering. That expires. Frankly, we're already outside of it, but they extended it knowing that it was going to go to this commission today. So that's essentially we would get a smaller amount if we wanted to agree to it at a later date.
Can I ask what that amount is? I think it's a small amount of money. The dollar amount that we're dealing with?
You know what? I'd have to defer to Mark Falcone at ComEd. I don't recall what the other number was.
Mark Falcone with ComEd. I don't have the exact number. It's about a 20% adder to the easement price, but I don't have the exact number.
Wasn't there also a schedule issue with the ICC being able to make a ruling based on what our decision was at the commission level?
Yeah, and this gets kind of technical, but essentially the Forest Preserve District has the ability to deny the right to cross its property. It cannot be condemned. And so part of the reason for the ICC's decision, as stated in its ruling, was that because the Forest Preserve District had not granted an easement to ComEd, it could not, the ICC felt it could not authorize the route across the Muirhead Forest Preserve because effectively the Forest Preserve District would hold all the cards and be able to veto that line if in fact it were approved by ICC because the Forest Preserve District had not at that point in time tendered an easement. So that was one of the bases for the proposed route going on the western border to the south and then east-west across to tie back in where east of Plato Center where it ties in.
Okay, we're going to vote on the motion to table. And a yes vote means we put it on the table and we save it to a later date. A no vote means we vote on the whole motion later on. I want to remind you of one thing. No matter what we do, the ICC has the final say-so. And only the great Karnak could tell you what they're going to do. So we're trying to do something, but the ICC will do what they want, whatever we want. Call the roll, please.
Allen. Aye. Auger. Yes. Ferrero. Yes. Davos.
No.
Ford.
No.
Thank you,
Mark.
No.
Dillon. No. Kane.
No.
Hochstein?
No.
Ismail?
Yes.
Kazari?
No.
Leonard?
No.
Lewis?
No.
Martin?
No.
Molina? Yes. Pollock?
No.
Sheffler?
Yes.
Silva?
No.
Smith?
No.
Winecki?
Yes.
The motion is defeated. We'll now vote on the motion as made and seconded. Motion is to the resolution authorizing the optional agreement for the grant of right-of-way easement with Commonwealth Edison for the use of land at the Muirhead Springs Forest Reserve. This is again a roll call vote.
Any more discussion?
I think we discussed it enough. We're going to vote. We already went through that. We stopped. We're not, no more dragging dead horses around. Go ahead.
Allen?
No.
Auger?
To abstain on this.
Ferrero? Yes. Davos?
Yes.
Ford?
Yes.
Kraft?
Yes.
Gilman? Yes. Kamen?
Yes.
Hochstein?
Yes.
Ismail?
Abstain.
I'm sorry.
Abstain.
Kazari?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Molina? No. Pollock?
Yes.
Sheffler?
Yes.
Silva? No. Smith?
Yes.
Winecki? No.
The yeses have it, the motion's approved, the agreement's approved. Now, the next item in the agenda is the appointments, and that would be the members of the Executive Committee, the Finance Chairman, the Finance Committee, the Land Acquisition and Enterprise, the Chairman of that committee, Planning and Utilization, and the Chairman of that committee, President Pro Tem, Secretary, and Treasurer. I'd like a motion to approve these. This is a voice vote. Mr. Davis moves.
I'll second.
Mr. Ford seconds. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. This meeting was a little bit long, and the last couple were long, and these are the tough meetings. And I want to thank you for your attention. It's pretty obvious when you listen to this board, you're all a bunch of independent thinkers. And you all have the reason why you do things. And that's good. There's no one-size-fits-all here. We spent a lot of time talking about this, the Brunner Farm. It's really unusual, the Muirhead Springs things. Thank God we don't have to face this every month. But this is why some people don't want to face what you're doing. You're making the effort to do what you think is right. And I want to thank you for your time and your energies in this. And we're grateful of Forest Reserve, and I know the county is too, for all your work. Is there a need for executive session? We have it on here. We need a motion for the department reports. Mrs. Allen, Mr. Kajarek seconds. All those, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Now we have something called communications here. And this last month I got to attend the Illinois Parks and Recreation's annual banquet. And our own man, John Hochstein, got an award for, what was the award for? And he was the best board member. You should have heard this guy. He did not know what was coming. He was really waylaid. He got up as if he had a teleprompter there, and he started talking, and it was great. And we're very proud of all the work you do, and the state is grateful. The Commissioner of the Year Award is presented annually to someone who has displayed outstanding leadership, service, and advocacy in support of the conservation, recreation, parks, and open space throughout their community and the state. Forest Preserve districts, along with the District Council, Patrick Canale, County Family, and Lauren, nominated Hochschild based on his accomplishment during his 19 years as commissioner and 12 years as forest district president. It was worth it. Several commissioners were able to drive in and be there, and we had to hide on the other side of the room so he didn't spot what was going on. And thank goodness your wife was in on the thing, because she had you fooled, didn't she? Say something, John. Just like I just. I mean, the guy's just great. You know that.
You know, the IAPD is a great organization. They really advocate on behalf of open space and our mission, and I guess it's easy to talk about something you're passionate about, but anytime we can get recognized here in Kane County, that award is really it's a team award. Although they hand it out to an individual, it's really shared based on the accomplishments we've been able to achieve. And a lot of people put their time in, our board, obviously a lot of teamwork here, the constituents who voted for 4 referendums, the volunteers we have that help us, 500 strong and growing, tireless hours to help us accomplish what we've done. And so it was really, it was a fun experience to be involved in. We had a good group down there. I want to thank the commissioners that could share it. I think it was important to see the power of parks and open space and recreation. And I would just say this, and Monica goes down every year and makes presentations, and the one area she's the expert on is intergovernmental agreements. And as part of this mission drift concept, there's some criticism of our intergovernmental agreements, but we're really the envy of the state in terms of the amount of relationships we've built with park districts and other open space agencies. And so I think that's a good thing, and that's a part of the basis for the recognition. So thanks for your comments this morning, Mike, and it was an honor to receive the award.
I want to something I thought that was kind of funny, and you sat with Tony Fairwinkle. For the first time, Cook County Forest Preserve joined. And how long has this organization been around?
It's a long time, but Cook County Forest Preserve District's now a member of IAPD, and it was one of the reasons that Peter Murphy, the CEO, asked me to attend the luncheon was so that I could sit at the table with her, because we could share experiences not only on the Forest Preserve side. She's actually the president of the Forest Preserve District in Cook County and the county board chairman. And I always thought the county board chairman was the hardest job in Illinois government, but she serves in both capacities. And it was a very interesting meeting, and sitting and having her see some of the presentations. I think having Cook County on our side is, in terms of legislative efforts for Forest Preserve districts, is going to be a big help.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith?
I never realized what a big deal the IAPD was until I showed up at this banquet. There were 4,000 people there, and they gave out quite a few awards. And for our own John Hochschild to get, which was the highest top award, really made me feel proud. So, John, you are the best.
Is there truth to the rumor that you got Cook County to join, and the only reason they did was so they could get you to the table?
I move we adjourn.
No, there you go. Mr. Hagan seconds. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.